You're listening to the Launchcast, the podcast about leadership, business, life, and growth with me, your host, George Andriopoulos.
It's like food for your ears.
At this time, I'm going to ask that you fasten your seatbelts.
Launch sequence.
Launch sequence activated.
Launch sequence activated.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Woo! Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Launchcast. 52 episodes, goosebumps. You can't see them, but they're there. Episode 207. This one's called Sanity is Definitely Overrated. You're going to find out why in just a few minutes. But we got to go through the whole thing. I don't think my headphones are hooked up right. Everything's going wrong. There we go. It's the LaunchDad himself bringing you your favorite podcast on the planet. It's true. It's damn true. Right now, as the beat drops.
Into the black hole.
Everything is going wrong here. What is happening, guys? Thank you for joining me for another episode of the Launchcast. It's episode 207, 52 episodes in. I made a mistake last week. I think I said 45. I don't know where I got that number from. 52 episodes in since season 1. It's the 7th episode of season 2, and we're rolling. So first of all, I want to thank everybody for last week's episode. Last week, we interviewed Lisa Mateo. So I'm recording right now on a Wednesday. This episode came out this past Monday, 2 days ago. This is, to date, our highest rated premiere and on track to be our highest downloaded episode ever. The feedback that we got on social media was insane. Lisa Mateo, of course, a journalist for CBS News. She was on Pix 11 for 18 years and just an incredible interview. If you guys haven't gotten a chance to listen to that, please go back and check out episode 206. It's called Let's Go to Lisa Live at the Scene. Man, she brought some honesty to that episode, talked about some trauma. And honestly, I really think that it was such a helpful episode based on the feedback that we got from not only our listeners, but fans of Lisa's that have become now Launchcast listeners. Incredible feedback on her story and how much it helped them to hear it and the honesty that she brought to the table. So thank you to Lisa for that. And thank you to our new listeners, because we have like a whole new listener base now, which is so cool. But we're here for a different reason. We're here for our friends from Sanity is Overrated, one of my favorite podcasts. And I'm going to talk about this in a little while because I'm technically a super fan, I think. But I'm going to ask Jenn and Rob. So let me bring these two up. Let me unmute them and bring them up. Hopefully no more technical glitches here. There we go. Those two beautiful faces. Hello, Jenn and Rob. Thanks so much for joining me.
Well,
Glad
I'm
to
not
be
really
here.
quite sure what we're doing here after you have Lisa Mateo. I mean, you're going from high just right down back to low.
No, so I
feel fine with it.
You're here for it.
I'm a fan.
Yeah, I'm not rating myself at all. Lisa Mateo, she's probably great. Don't watch the news. So there we go.
I am a true fan.
I thought it was Dre. When you said for a second, I thought it was Drea De Matteo from The Sopranos. So, but that's wrong. So sorry about that.
Drea De Matteo was my customer back in the pharmacy industry a million years ago. Her family was from Whitestone, and that's where I worked for many years of my career. So
what did she get? What was on her list of pharmaceuticals?
Come on.
You can't tell though.
Come
you can't
on. Tell. Is this what he's like on the show too?
Yes.
All the time. I just go with it. I just let him make an ass out of himself.
This is
That's
why you guys pick
man.
on. I was going to ask you, why do you guys pick on Rob so much? But I think I'm totally getting it.
No, we don't. We don't pick on Rob at all. We love Rob. so deeply. I called him my lobster in our last episode, Love Language, that we recorded on the stereo app.
With the claws?
Uh,
In the tank?
yeah, with the claws. We mate for life.
In the
We're
tank.
in it. We're in it to win it.
Let me tell everybody who you are, because they think we're just nuts right now. So, Jennifer Muccioli, she is a story producer and a reality TV fan, in that order. When she's not podcasting, she is the communications director in corporate America. Jennifer has worked across her firm's global network, profiling leaders and their stories both on camera and as a video producer, and off camera as a social media lead. This lady right here is incredible. She is so talented. There's so many more things on here. I want to talk about Athena Long Island. She is a longtime member of Athena Long Island, a chapter of the internationally recognized Athena International Organization, and she has held the role of video producer, profiling the journeys and stories of women leaders nominated for the prestigious Athena Leadership and Athena Young Professional Award. Over the course of her career, Jennifer has served as a keynote speaker, guest producer, guest lecturer for nationally recognized organizations and events. The board of Northport High School Academy of Finance, like it never ends here. And the proprietor of Sweet Baby James Bakery, that makes the best Christmas crack in the world. And by the way, I just remembered that I have in the back of my fridge a couple of more of those jammies that you dip. What were they called? On the popsicle stick that you dip it in your.
The hot cocoa bombs.
Hot cocoa bombs.
Yeah, the hot cocoa stick.
I have two left. That's Jen. Now, Rob.
Well, I'll see you guys later. That was great, Jen.
Rob
See you later.
McCaffrey.
Top
Rob
that.
McCaffrey, the very impetuous man on the right, is a singer, actor, podcaster, and native Long Islander. Rob's theater credits include The Full Monty, My Fair Lady, Motown, the musical national tour, The Sound of Music, and so much more. He currently co-hosts Sanity is Overrated with his partners Jenn and Laurel. Sanity now. Now this is what we're here for. Sanity. Have you heard the one where the communications director, social media manager, and actor walk into a bar and, well, that's exactly what happens here. After being classmates as kids, Jennifer, Rob, and Laurel reconnect after 15 years of not seeing each other. The result is a hilarious journey through navigating life, love, and the pursuit of happiness, otherwise known as the American Dream. Join Rob, Jenn, and Laurel twice a month as they bring you stories of their ups and downs with healthy living, parenting, fitness, relationships, anxiety. They talk about it all, and they snack all the time and drink too, probably, right?
Oh, yeah.
And we'll tell you where to find them later. I'll tell you right now, they're on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, all of those places. We're gonna put their Instagram, Twitter tags, their download links, all in the show notes later. So we'll get to that. Now, I want to say first that you guys are no strangers to the Launchcast. Jenn was my co-host for one of the best interviews that has ever come out of the show with Carol Silva, which turned into a two-part episode. Episodes 105 and 106, A Christmas Carol. That was so much fun. That was so much fun to do with you. And both Jenn and Rob appeared on brief segments on episode 116, We All Live in a Mellow Quarantine. So they are no strangers to this show, but I'm so glad that we get to showcase you guys, and this 5-minute bio is over and we could finally start talking.
I was wondering when that was going to end. That's quite a resume we have, Rob. We should really pat ourselves on the back.
Seriously, we don't even talk that much about ourselves on our show. So I think
well, that's what this is about, right? I want people, first of all, I want people to know that this show is really, really good. We're going to dive into the show a little bit later in the interview. But you guys don't, you get into yourselves a little bit. You did all your solo episodes recently where learn about Rob, learn about Jenn, learn about Laurel. But I want to learn more. I want people to know, I know you guys personally. I want people to know more about the host because this is a really good show and I want people to listen to it.
All right, bring it on. I'm here.
So let's do the serious stuff first. Serious stuff
all
first,
right.
and I'll start with
Serious,
Jenn because this is the stuff we start with on every episode. This is a leadership show, right? So we're going to talk a little bit about leadership and get to leadership in podcasting. Jenn, are you a leader?
Yeah, for sure. I would consider myself a leader. I'm a student of leadership every day, and I do consider myself a leader both at work and on the podcast.
Yeah, Rob, what about you, buddy?
Leadership. I thought about this a lot. And I'll have to say that I do have leadership skills, not necessarily in like a general going into war and leading an army, but more as somebody who leads by teaching or by experience. So I like to do that. That's my leadership skills, not necessarily a general, a teacher, a mentor.
So what does leadership mean to you guys in terms of this podcast here?
In terms of Sanity?
Sanity, yeah.
Yeah. So Sanity was started out of the reality that we make mistakes, and striving for perfection is so overrated. And we're at a very crazy time in the American history, both socially and economically and politically. And we wanted a place where people could feel comfortable that there are three people who come from three very different walks of life, but we're tackling the same issues. And you would not pick us out of a lineup to be friends with one another, but the struggles that we're going through are very, very similar. And we all come at it from different perspectives. And so Sanity was born to give people that comfort that they're not alone. There are people just like them going through issues of severe magnitude. And no matter how you approach it, we wanted to start that dialogue just to let people know that someone is on their side.
Yeah, Rob. So you came into this slightly after the start of Sanity is Overrated, and we'll get into that a little bit later. But in terms of what Jenn just talked about, as far as the goal of the podcast, how do you feel that you fit into that when you jumped in?
I didn't. Oh, I didn't feel like I did at first, but it was something that I always wanted to try, and Jenn gave me the opportunity, and I at that point was into saying yes to anything. I'd always strive for greatness, and I'm not ready. It's not ready. I can't now. In the last couple of years, I'm like, I'll figure it out as I go along, but I have to keep assessing how I'm doing. So I figured, let me come in, see what happens, see how we gel, and it worked. Jenn, myself, and Laurel, we have a good little thing going. We saw it on the first episode at the old studio. So I came in just to kind of play around with them, and when I was making drinks, correct, and we just really hit it off again. So what was the question?
How do you fit in?
How do I fit in? I mean,
He's silent. He's humble.
I mean, have I ever, how do I fit in? I mean, have I ever fit in? I mean, I was thinking about this recently. I mean, I'm pretty much a loner. I go from show to show to show, as far as theater's concerned. So I don't walk to the beat of my own drum, and whatever like whatever like in the Venn diagram that myself and Jenn and Laurel meld, like that's what it is. I don't know what that is just yet. It's been a year. It's me and two women who have careers and children, and I am a perpetual bachelor who does theater and is still trying to make it happen consistently.
Yeah, love it. And we're going to get into all that. I want to sort of do what we do here on the Launchcast, even though this is going to be a little bit of a different interview because we're going to focus mostly on the podcast towards the latter half. But I want to get into the stories a little bit, right? So people can learn about you. So let me start with Jenn. Rob, you can go take a nap if you want real quick.
It's going to be a long time. I can tell you that.
So we all grew up here in the Dale, here in Farmingdale, New York, in the heart of Long Island. Some of us products of Farmingdale schools, other Catholic schools in the area. So Jenn, I want to start with you. Tell me about young Jenn. I know Jenn now. I know Jenn for the last, how long do we know each other? Maybe like seven years or so?
At least. Yeah,
right.
at least 7 years.
Something like that. Yeah. So tell me about young Jenn growing up in Farmingdale.
Yeah, so young Jen grew up in California. Just a little
So,
side message
so
there.
young Jen that grew up in Farmingdale is elsewhere. So I'll bring her on
Right.
next time. Yeah.
Young Jen, if we want to go way back, young Jen was born around the block from where old Jen lives now. But when I was young, I moved out to California and really bit into that theater bug. And that's how Rob and I initially connected when we were in middle school, and my family moved back here to Farmingdale. And it was in the theater where I found my voice, and it was through being able to transform into different characters and take on their personas that I allowed myself to be vulnerable and really get into who they were and what they were experiencing, and be able to convey that through song and through characters on the stage. And so I felt that passion very deep down in my soul, and I carried that through high school, where I was not picked for every single audition I ever went on. And so I suppressed a lot of that into that, and I transformed that into "you're not good enough." So then I became that persona. You're not good enough. And I traveled for the next decade of my life, constantly beating to the drum of "you're not good enough," which made me push myself to the limits, both with school and with anything that I touched. I had to be the best. I had to be perfect, which led to another decade of just never meeting my own expectations. So it wasn't until a life event in my life that I had to take a step back and say, you are good enough, and allow myself to be in a place where I was accepting of who I was, and I was willing to admit that I make mistakes and I don't need to have all the answers, and it's okay that I can push back on somebody and say no. I don't always have to be the one at the head of the class raising my hand, volunteering for the opportunity, raising the most money, being the class president, being promoted at my jobs, but I could just be comfortable in my own skin. And that led me to create the podcast.
Yeah. So I want to know, man, you covered a lot there. So I want to know, once you started sort of coming into your own, and I know you've talked about performing a lot, when you were younger, and having such a strong passion for that. Did you have back then any kind of sense of what life would turn out to be in terms of a profession? Like, what did you want to do back then?
What I wanted to do was be on Broadway, which is why I admire and am constantly inspired by Rob, because Rob has been able to take the dream and the passion that I had and make it his life's work. And not only has he been able to do that, but he does that well. And he does that, and he just makes it look so easy. But I come from a family that didn't accept that it wasn't the answer for me. It wasn't my path that they chose for me. So on the other side of admiration and inspiration by Rob, there's jealousy that I wasn't able to travel down that path, which I think had I had the opportunity to do it all over again, I actually don't know if I would be on Broadway. One would hope, but I'll tell you this much: I sing at every chance I get to my kids. They tell me to shut up, and I sing in the shower, and I sing in the car, and I sing like no one's watching. And I'm good with that. I'm cool with that.
I remember a moment. We were having a meeting in my office. Maybe we were just having lunch in my office. I don't remember what it was. A couple of years back, somehow it came up, this whole theater nerd thing, right? And I told you that I was a total closet theater nerd, and I'm pretty sure we broke out into some Rent song in my office, right? It's funny that not funny, but it's crazy hearing so much about a person when they're so introspective and really they're being honest about themselves. When I first met you, that first year getting to know you, in terms of what you do for a living, your knowledge base in what you do, I was like, man, she is like powerhouse. Like I remember saying to my wife that Jen's like a genius, complete business genius. And then, I would always see these moments, and I wanted to get into this where I think this is why we clicked. You reminded me so much of the way I am with creative outlets, right? Like Jenn was always trying to do something. Oh, there was always some kind of like side hustle to get out that creativity, right? Whether it was, you did your couponing thing, you did the bakery, we did TEDx together, all this stuff. You're always trying to get that creative outlet out there, and I'm akin to that. Like I love that because that's how I am. People always tell me that I'm just always, all over the place. I'm trying to do so much, but there's a creativity that just it's inside and it won't stop, right? Like there's something that just says you got to keep going. You got to do something else that fulfills you creatively. What is that like for you?
Well, thank you for the compliment. I really appreciate that. It's like a jitterbug that's inside your head that you just can't quiet down. When you are a highly creative person, which I feel like I am, there's always a pad and pen that has to be nearby because there's always a thought in my head that has to get out. Now, normally I would blurt it out and speak to think, but I've learned over the years that that's not always the best route to go down. So what it's like is it's writing in my journal a whole lot about my ideas because you're right. I always have an idea about something I want to do, make, try, see, be, surround myself with. And then it's about going out there and getting those experiences that almost satiate that desire and that spirit of creativity. So surrounding myself with people that are like-minded and totally different-minded than I, so that we can have that good debate or we can create something together, or there's a piece to the puzzle that I can't quite figure out, which is why great people like Rob and Laurel come along because they complete the puzzle.
Yeah.
Even though that's a saying that Rob and I hate, you complete me. It's together we make that work.
Yeah, no, I love that. I just had a conversation with somebody yesterday where they said that nothing good ever gets done. No progress ever gets made unless you really push and it's hard for you, and so, in those spouts of creativity, when they come out and they just sort of vomit onto a piece of paper and you don't know what it's going to turn out like. They're tough to get them to come to fruition, but when they work, man, you and I have worked on a couple of things together. And this came up earlier today, which was total coincidence, but we did that John Gordon project 4 years ago, which was so much fun. Jenn was able to secure the author John Gordon for a project for our kids' elementary school, and we brought him into my office with the principal and assistant principal, and we did a whole interview series with him that got shown to the kids. Oh my God, that was so much fun to do. And then TEDx Farmingdale, and what you said about like-minded and different-minded. This to me, having now gone through this, I have produced 3 TEDx shows to date, 2 TEDx Farmingdales, and co-produced a TEDx Women event in Deer Park. And that TEDx Farmingdale event for me was transformational. And what I loved about it, as the 2 creative minds behind it, you and I, was that we fought the whole way. Like, it was not easy. Yeah, like we loved each other and hated each other and were annoyed at each other. And damn it, was that a good show? My God, like that was just incredible. And this is what I say about, your ability, man. Like, that show could not have happened without you. That was just like
Oh,
that was one of the best moments professionally of my life, like seriously. And it led to so much growth, but yeah, you're a talented person. You really, really are
thank
such a talented person. All right, let's sidebar. Let's move to Rob, because Rob has his own story. Rob, it's funny, this came up when you were on that one episode of the Launchcast. I have vague memories of you through childhood, and I
Right.
thought that we went to elementary school. I was positive that we went to elementary school together. And then when we were doing that interview, you were like, no, I didn't go to East Memorial.
No, I didn't. I didn't go there. I was a Catholic school kid, and then my parents realized that it really wasn't doing me any good over there. So they took me out, and I found a little bit more room to breathe in public school system in Farmingdale, which was really good because it had some more opportunities for my brand of talent, and it was interesting because I really felt stifled at Catholic school. And your parents send you there because that's what they wanted and that was their upbringing. But when you realize that it just wasn't, it seemed to them like it was what your family could do for the diocese or your family could do for the school, that you got more opportunities that way. And I just kept falling through the cracks. But I found it was like a breath of fresh air to get into that program, get into go to public school after Catholic school, because I joined the chorus, and then we did a show, and I did one show, and then they were like, hey, you should do the summer program, where I met Jenn, and I found musical theater that way. And through that, I did community theater, and I did all the shows at in the high school as a play crafter, which has a lot of great people have come out of there, which is fantastic. Like Rob Bartlett or Danny Dominique are two friends of mine. And then when I didn't know anything about going to school for theater. I'm the first one to go to a 4-year college. My family, everybody's a New York City police officer. So their idea of success has to do with being secure. And you're never going to be rich, you're never going to be poor, but you're never going to, starve, and you're always going to have, you're always going to have your health care and your 401k and all that stuff. And, I didn't know anything about that. I just wanted to perform. So I ended up going to the Hart School of Music at the University of Hartford for theater. And, it was great because I showed up there and I had no fear. But the one thing that's a problem with programs is that they tend to build you up or break you down to build you back up again. They teach you how to work artistically, but they don't really teach you how to work on the business end of things. So you come to New York and you're just thrown to the wolves there in New York, and it was hard. It's always a struggle. It's been a struggle for a long time, and I didn't necessarily know how to work. I just figured I would just be. I was a star in college, and I came out of college, and I don't know if the things shifted in the business, but they weren't looking for me. So and I appreciate Jenn for saying that. I've made it my career, and it's the love of it, but it's also been a long road, and it's been a lot of reassessing. So.
Well, let me backtrack there. Let me backtrack there for a minute, because I'm so curious to see at what age did you know this was it? Did you come out of high school or out of junior high school knowing that this is what you wanted to do?
I actually wanted to be a music teacher at first, but then the more I thought about it, they said I was looking at a lot of music theater, music programs to be a music teacher. But the more I thought about it, the more I didn't want to teach. I wanted to perform. So I found somebody who I had a voice teacher back then who said, well, they have all these programs. So I said, okay. And that was the thing. I did it all on my own. I didn't know about going to visit the colleges or anything like that. So my father, me and my mother, we just, threw caution to the wind. I did a bunch of college entrance exams and all that stuff. And applications, and I threw them out. And I had, I had 2 that I went to. I went to Ithaca, and I went to Hartford, and I got into Hartford. I didn't get into Ithaca, so I went to Hartford, and it turned out to be a really cool program. Yeah. So amazing. I would say answer your question. I didn't really know until possibly junior year.
Yeah.
That I knew I wanted to do something, but I didn't know I wanted to make it a career. I didn't actually know that I could make it a career.
So I'm curious, you talked about your family a little bit, a family of police officers and
Yeah.
Growing up on Long Island. I know what that life is like and what that expectation is. What kind of feedback, what kind of support or even pushback did you get from peers, from going forward? I know that, going to the same school and you're only a year older than me. So I remember, the play crafters and that whole scene. And I remember when we were growing up, it's a totally different thing than what it is now. Right.
Yeah.
So accepted now, so like part of the culture there at that school. I'm excited because my daughter will be in that school in another 2 years. one year after next year, she'll be in that school, and this is her thing, right? Like she wants to do that. So I'm excited for her that, she's not going to feel what some of the people felt back then. She's not going to feel like an outcast, but I remember back then how tough it was. And I was one of those guys that was just friends with everybody in our grade. So many close friends that were, play crafters and had a tough time. Back then.
I would say so. Look, yes, things have changed. Times have changed. Bullying still happens. And I think that there was a part of us that we felt like a band of pirates, I still talk to some of the guys, and I don't really have any ill will towards people who didn't accept it. I found as time went on, with the advent of social media, you'll get in touch with people, or you'll see how their lives are going, and they have families, and this person's doing this, and this person's a doctor, lawyer. But then you end up going to the reunion, and you end up talking to people who have grown up, and they've said, hey, I really admire what you've done, and I always wanted to do it, but I never had the wherewithal to do it. I was worried that somebody might make fun of me, or I'd be bullied, and I always admired what you did. And I always said, well, I appreciate that. I'm sorry that you didn't have the courage to do it. But it wasn't easy. I actually I felt a little bit more invisible than anything else. I don't necessarily feel like people were pushing me into lockers or anything like that, but I do remember being just invisible. And I remember always wanting to fit in. And I remember every year, every September, you get your clothing, you get your new school clothes, and you dress up for the first day of school. And I remember every year just going, this is going to be the year that they see me. And they never did.
Yeah.
And that imprint on you as a kid, that stays with you for a very long time. And it's only recently, last couple of years, that I've kicked that needing approval to exist, needing approval to create, and needing somebody's approval to be who I want to be myself.
I'm curious, because I'm with Jenn here, right? I'm curious to hear what it feels like to hear something like what Jenn said to you before about her being jealous of what you do to a degree, because I'm totally with Jenn here. This was something that I don't think I had the passion that you guys did in my youth. I definitely was somebody who looked at performing, was I would love to do that, right? And I did the whole thing. Man, you're looking at Mug 3 from Miss Lindsley's Give My Regards to Broadway, 1993, my friend. This is Mug 3. But
God, I mean, Miss Lindsley.
Yeah, incredible force.
Yeah.
But it's something that when reality set in, that wasn't a feasible choice to make going forward. You just kind of left it there. But now, right, to hear somebody like Jenn saying that she's jealous of that, and I am too, man. Like, honestly, and I think we're all enlightened people here, and enlightened people don't measure things by security or 401ks or whatever, right? Enlightened people measure things by happiness. That's success to us. And so something I admire about you, and I have it in my notes here, is the lifestyle of a performer. I've heard you talk about this personally. I've heard you talk about this on Sanity. You embrace it. And I love that. It's so authentic that you embrace it, that you get like, hey, there's no show right now. I got to bartend. I got to do what I got to do until the next show. And then back to my passion, right? Like,
right.
It's so authentic that you do that, And so I just want to see what it feels like to sort of hear somebody like Jenn say that to you.
Well, it felt very good, and I appreciate that, Jenn. I'm not good at receiving compliments. I'm really not, at all, and she knows that. So I'm feeling very, I'm blushing right now, and it's hard because you have to hustle. It's a constant hustle, and I was tired of the New York hustle, so it's great that I got to be back here with my family. I mean, like being on tour, and then you got to keep an apartment, and then you have roommates and people staying in your place and sublets. And then I was like, I don't want to do that anymore. And my family was like, come home, and I did. And I have a good base of operation. If I hadn't come back here, I don't think I'd be working with Jenn right now. So things happen for a reason, right? But now it's like, how do I did a lot of throwing stuff up against the wall and seeing what happens. And now things have to be a little more calculated, in the sense that, like, all right, well, I want to get to this point in my career. What are the things I need to do? What is that when I can't sit around and be like, I just have no motivation anymore, because motivation doesn't exist. You can have inspiration, but you also have to have discipline. And discipline is the key word. For me, it's discipline. It's going to that audition, getting the audition from my agent, learning the sides, working with a coach, tweaking the things, not going in there, using what you know to control what you can control, because there's a lot of things you can't control. You can't control the business. You can't control what the casting directors want. You can't control what the directors want. You have to go in there and try to be as authentic as possible, and give what is the essence of you that is real, to the character that they want. And if they like you, great. If they don't, it probably has nothing to do with your talent. It probably has something to do with, they had just something else in mind. So it's right. So it's a constant battle. You have to hustle, and you have to like go in and reassess. You just have to keep sharpening that. You got to keep sharpening that knife, which is your talent. Yeah. And that's what you have control over. If you're worried about all the other things, it's going to be too much in your head, and you're not gonna go in there, and you're not gonna be able to show them what you got. You're just constantly going, oh my God, are they gonna like me? Are they gonna want me for their role? If they don't like me, they're stupid. That's not what they're thinking about. So yeah, there's a lot of mind games, but you have to be like, you gotta be focused. You gotta be laser focused when you go in there, and you have to know what you're doing, and you have to show them what you got.
Yeah.
And that's really the hustle. I hope I answered your question.
You did. Speaking of stage, before we move on to Sanity, this was something I was wondering. I'm so curious about this. We talk about leadership here, right? When you're on a stage and you are portraying a person of significance, right, on stage, that character, whether it's a character that's a fictional character or based on a real person, do you feel a sense of responsibility on that stage to do that character right, in terms of leadership? Really, I know this sounds like a stretch, but I really don't think it is.
All right, I can tell you this. I feel the responsibility to tell my part of the story. And if it anything about leadership, it's about going in there, making a choice, and going with it. And usually, if you do like I just played a character in the Sound of Music. I played a Nazi, which is, a total stretch. Although some people wouldn't agree with me, but it's a total stretch. But I mean, I'm not the lead in the show. I'm just a part of the story, and I have to help tell that story from my point of view. Nobody cares what I had for lunch, but I have to be there, and I have to be there for the lead roles, for the Captain Von Trapp and Maria and the kids, and represent whatever that pushback is, what that was, 1940s Austria. I feel a responsibility to go in there, do my job, serve the play, serve the director, and lead with experience, and lead by example. That's part of it. When it comes to other things, like I was on stage playing Ed Sullivan when I did Molttown, and they just put me in a suit, and the rest I just had to do the impression of it. But it was fun, and I got a laugh every night. But it was important because that gentleman, that man, was in people's homes every night, and the people who came to the show. They watched the Ed Sullivan Show. They watched the Ed Sullivan Show when Diana Ross and the Supremes were on there, and when Smokey Robinson was on there, or the Beatles. And he certainly had some quirks that you try and portray on stage. And as long as you're honest with it and you have fun with it, it got a laugh every night, and I had a lot of fun doing that. That was fun. So I think the essence of what I'm trying to say is, go there, know where you fit in the where you fit in the machine, which is the show or the play, and be truthful and do your part, and don't pull focus. Just realize you're there to support, and you're there to tell the truth, and you're there to tell the story. And that's how I feel, I show leadership, even if you're not, your name's not above the marquee, or you're not the first name on the call sheet. I think it's important, and people see that.
Yeah.
See that.
I wish I could be a fly on the wall, man, for your career. It's so cool. I'd love to get into this so much more, but we'll do that another day. I'm sure we'll. Yeah. I'm sure we'll do this again one day. Let's go to the show now. Sanity is Overrated, the podcast for those who juggle it all. So as I said before, I'm a total fan of this show. I'm so proud that you guys, started this show in my studio for the first couple of episodes, and then moved on. And I've been a fan since day one. Since spitballing ideas and watching you guys in your process at the conference table before an episode record. It's a fun show, and it's real, particularly in like the latter half of season 1 and then all of season 2, when I really think like you guys always had a stride and a connection, but like you're killing it in season 2, really, really killing it. So Jenn, why don't you tell everybody how this whole thing got started? I know you touched on it a little bit before, but tell everybody how the podcast got started, the idea, and how it all came together.
Sure. Morella and I really came together as we were working on TEDx Farmingdale. And we were up in the AV booth, and we would just have these really great conversations about life, and they were funny and they were witty and sarcastic. And it was like, oh, did we miss another notification from the school about tie-dye day, or just every day, from being parents to being working full-time to navigating through the social aspects of our life, and how to hang on to friends as really almost middle-aged women. And one day we went to dinner, and I remember we were having sushi, and we're like, let's do a podcast. let's just record a podcast. We've got a lot to say. And I bet that there are people out there who will want to listen. And subsequent to that, I own a bakery and I was catering an event that was nowhere near my home. It was at a ridiculously lavish, wonderful event space on the North Shore. And I walked in, and who was standing behind the bar but my friend Rob McCaffrey? And I was like, what in the Sam hell is this? And it had to be something more than just a chance meeting, because there was no viable reason the two of us needed to be in that space, and yet here we were. So a couple days later, I had this brilliant idea for the podcast that we were just about to get ready to start, to say, why don't we bring in a bartender? Very Clubhouse, very Bravo Clubhouse, Watch What Happens Live with Andy Cohen-esque. Why don't we bring in a bartender every episode, and we'll have a signature drink? And so I texted Rob blindly and just said, this is a very high level. This is my thinking. Can you meet at this time at this place? Could you bring the following things? And he just wrote back, sure. Now, fast forward a year, I'm still texting Rob long text messages of my thoughts, and he writes back, sure, only for me to realize he doesn't actually read the text. He just says yes, and then shows up and then says, okay, what are we doing? So that night, let me take you back to that night that he was supposed to show up and be the bartender. He came with half the ingredients. And I'm like,
to have the other half of it. Do not, we can't.
How are you?
But
I think I have the floor.
Supposed to bring something.
Oh, you could totally curse here, by the way. This is explicit.
You were supposed to pretend, don't bullshit. You were supposed to bring something.
A bartender always brings his tools. I'm going to leave it right there.
Fucking bullshit, Jen.
Okay?
I do bring my tools.
A bartender always brings his tools. So he made us this ridiculously disgusting drink, and which I finished 2 of maybe. And I said, why don't you sit down and just shoot the shit with us? And he sat down, and we got on this tangent about mealtime, and he said, you got to make like steak pizzaiola or sausage and pepper.
That is the most. I'm a little upset by your Italian rendition. Steak pizzaiola. Steak pizzaiola.
And I said, I'm never letting this guy out of my sight again. I said, I did it once. When we went our separate ways when we were little. I'm never letting him out of my sight again. And I said, Rob, will you join the podcast full time? And he said yes. And it's been a joyride ever since.
This episode is sponsored by the new cohort of the Leadership Experience. Unconventional leadership brought to you by yours truly, the LaunchDad himself, George Andriopoulos. Our new cohort is starting soon, and not only do we still have the same 4 courses, that's right, the public thought leadership track, the career leader track, the entrepreneurship track, and of course the podcast experience. We have our first graduate level, up level, inimitable, the newest one-on-one leadership class. This is for not only if you have taken the leadership experience core class before and are ready to graduate to the newest level, but for those that have experienced leadership and want to take it to a new level, Inimitable is for you. I'm not even going to talk about it in this commercial. You're going to have to contact me. Check out theleadershipexp.com for details and to sign up for information. Inimitable is coming at you. DM me for more info. Later, guys. Yeah, and the focus originally, I don't remember what the tagline was, but the focus originally was juggling motherhood, right?
You know, you always go back to that. And yes, we did have one graphic rendering where it was a mom who it was like a stick figure of a mom who had 18 different arms, and in each one of those arms was a different aspect of her life. So yes, the show's original intent was about parenting and the different perils of parenting and how to juggle it all. Quickly did we pivot from parenting to just be about really important topics that impact our life.
Yeah.
And so we've done a deep dive through season 1. As we were trying to get our footing, we were hit with a global pandemic, and we quickly had to learn how to cope. And not only cope, but hold a relationship together that we knew needed to be together, but we weren't exactly sure how, and we weren't exactly sure what. And so we just got on the phone and we talked about what was on our mind. And we said, these are check-ins. And we recorded these check-ins and we put them on Zoom. We launched them on our podcast channel, and people just kept coming and listening. And then we said, if they're listening, we need to keep talking. And we had no agenda. We started every call by saying, what's happening in your life? And we just got raw and real and unfiltered. And people just kept saying, you're holding us together. Keep going, keep going. And so that's what we did.
Yeah. When Rob joined, he brought this dichotomy to the group that I thought was like such a perfect addition. And I love that it was just a fly in the wall to watch that, as it happened in real life, and then listening later on when I would just listen to the episodes. And man, like you talk about a pivot, but it's really like an evolution. I feel like, you guys quickly found that footing, and the theme of the podcast and the voice of the podcast quickly evolved and started gelling. And I know you guys worked your asses off to just be as authentic as possible and start talking about stuff that was really important to you guys. And it was so fun to see the growth of the relationship. You actually, I was, we talk about being jealous of Rob's career. I was listening to your podcast and I was like jealous of the group dynamic. It made me want something for this show, right? Like I love what I do here on the Launchcast, but there's an element of having others that I'm not interviewing, right? To be able to have a conversation with and just talk about, what's happening, what's going on right now. How are you feeling? And I loved what you guys did with that. It made me want to bring that element to my show, which didn't really work for my show. But talking about the growth, season 2, listening to you guys was just such a huge change. Like you guys came to play. And particularly, I remember texting you guys, season 2, episode 2, called The Answer is Anxiety. That's the show to me that was like, fuck, game changer. Like this podcast is here to stay. Like it was just real. It was a time where, and I think I told you guys in a text message, not all of us could be so brave to reveal our fear and weakness right now in this time, because some of us are just holding it together for so many other people, and we're not able to. And so just listening to people, be honest like that in a time that was just so fucking nuts for everybody. Like, talk about like losing our minds, right? That episode was the game changer for me. So, to talk about just the growth to that level and what that felt like, bringing that sort of, putting the playfulness aside for a minute and just being real.
Yeah, I think for sure what you felt is something I think the three of us felt, and our AV director, Jeff, who's our silent hello partner. So he says hello on every episode, but that's about all we get out of him.
I don't know. We might get more out of him soon.
Spoiler alert, soon.
Right.
I think there was a moment where we all felt the podcast shift during season 1 towards the end. where it became so much more than just a hobby, and it became a responsibility, and a good responsibility, because people were listening, and they were talking to us, and they were telling us what they needed, and we were listening to that, and we were doing our level best to continue to be authentic, to bring them things that we were struggling with and conversations that we were having, funny conversations or meaningful conversations. And the intentional choice to do The Answer is Anxiety came about because the three of us all struggle with mental health. And mental health isn't talked about enough. It isn't something that people embrace, and we need to change that dialogue. In this current day, especially, checking in on someone to make sure that their mental health is level is critical. And it's the difference between if somebody's going to make it or if they're not going to make it. And so we intentionally made a decision as a group to go deep, which is not something we typically do, to take it to a level where we're sort of allowing people to see another layer of our skin, because we know that there are people that would benefit from the conversation.
And I think that's okay. I think I think there were a couple of those episodes during COVID when, I mean, the middle of it, when we were just doing Zoom calls, that I think I got heated one day. I got on, Jenn, if you remember, I think there was one day where I was at my wit's end, because my industry is decimated right now. I don't know when it's coming back. So, I also feel that the podcast came to me at the perfect time, because everything was just starting to roll in the business, in theater for me, because I had found that discipline to, keep going, and everything we talked about before about reassessing and working again and going in there and giving your best performance. And I'm glad it came, because and this is funny, Jenn, because I know that you admire me for my performing and being a performer and making it my life. I learn now that Jenn teaches me how to be a producer. And I never thought about it, because I was in a industry where somebody would give me a role and I would learn how to do it and I would interpret that. But I've never had the chance to. I don't have that other, I don't know what you want to call it. I don't have that other outlet. I've never learned how to produce something on my own, and it feels so much better to create something out of nothing, and to have a conversation about it. And then we'll have a meeting, and Jenn will say, well, what do you think, Rob? And sometimes I'm like, well, why do you care what I think? Because nobody else cared what I think. I just have to produce, my little role here and my little role there. But now, I mean, I'm doing research. I am doing research, Jenn. I am doing research. And I
call
think
bullshit.
about, what I mean, look, I'm learning on the fly. I'm learning on the fly. And nobody is as dedicated to having notes as Jenn is, and
Nobody.
And hopefully nobody. Hopefully some of that will still, permeate my soul, because I'm starting to realize that maybe, just maybe, you have to do your own thing, and not, and it's found, and I found that I can't wait for the industry to come back. And when it does come back, I will go back and audition, but I will still make time and be there for every time we go on the air. So I think that I found that not only do I have to do what I do what I love to do with somebody else's vision, but I have to do something that's my own vision or our vision. And I think that has, I think that then also being being our true selves and being authentic on the mic has been amazing. I mean, that anxiety episode has that's the one that a lot of my friends who have tuned in have checked that one out, and not even that I told them to do it. That's the one like, oh, I really like that anxiety episode. Like that said a lot to me. Like I felt that one, and I was like, wow, cool. Like it's getting out there. It's permeating. So, yeah, I think that was, I don't say a masterpiece, but it was certainly one of the more memorable.
It was a masterpiece.
And it got us closer. It really helped us gel, the three of us and Jeff, on you know what I mean, the three of us, you know, talking to each other, and it's really brought a new dynamic to our collective.
Well, that's the beauty of this platform, and you guys know this now as podcasters. This is like, you know, I never got to be a performer. Jen never got to be a performer, but this is a performance space for us, right? Like this is a way to get this voice out, right? And not only that, but you know, I do public speaking. Jen's a public speaker. This, for me, this is it's such an amazing exercise for finding that authentic voice, fine-tuning that authentic voice, and just getting better at my craft, getting better at my communication, my messaging. And, you know, there's fun parts of it. You know, the whole LaunchDad persona at the beginning of the episode where I get to be loud and do my fun intro and stuff, that's shtick, and that's fun because that's something I want to do for 5 minutes and be able to do something fun like that. But then I get to do what really matters here, interviews like this and getting honesty like this. And this, guys, like, people will hear this and it will help them. Somebody out there needs to hear exactly what you're saying, just like, you know, your anxiety episode. I mean, this is what this whole thing is about. If we're trying to reach people and help people, but we get to do our thing, you know, at the same time, we get to perform, we get to have our voices heard. And, you know, Rob, I'm sure that you obviously have a tremendous advantage in terms of performance and just having your voice out there, but this has to help fine tune the voice, right?
It does, and I find that the more I do it, I mean, after every show, I look at Jen, I go, did I say and ah a lot? Did I have any of those filler words? She's like, oh, you're getting better. So, you know, I usually I'm learning the script, and I learn the script, you know, verbatim, but there is no script. You know, there's like bullet points, but there's no script. So I'm finding it easier to communicate, to express myself. I need to slow down, and that's one thing I need to do. When I go, I speak a mile a minute, and my brain just goes, you know, out there, and I have to learn how to collect my thoughts and speak a little slower, especially even on here right now. I'm like, am I talking too fast? I'm gonna call Jen after this and be like, so how did I do? But I think that's, you know, I think that's what we and I think that's the best thing. Like I'm pulling things from each people. I'm pulling things from Laurel. Laurel has a very laid back attitude on the show, and I wish I had that. You know, because I always feel like I have to be, you know, in my family, if you don't speak, if you don't, you know, talk over somebody else, you're not being heard. Yeah. So, you know, I think that's, you know, you know, whatever PTSD from being in a big Italian family. So, but I have to learn that I'm going to be allowed to say my piece. And also Jenna's going to pull me back too. And she does. So I does. Think yeah. We accomplish. She's like, okay, let's move on. and it's teaching me to self-edit and to get my point across in brevity. And those are things that I really learned how to do. And I think we are learning from each other every show. Would you say so, Jen? I don't want to speak for you.
No, I definitely learn. Every episode we do, we get stronger, we get better. And I also want, because I know, George, this is a podcast about leadership. You know, there's a business aspect to podcasting. And so there was a moment where we came together and it was fun. And you're going to get listeners for the first 2 episodes because you're fun. But the trick is sustainability. And the trick is to think of yourself as, how am I curating a show that people are going to want to listen to?
Right.
And that takes time and effort and energy and a structure. So all of our shows have a structure. They may not have a script, but they all have a structure and they all have a story arc. And one of the most important things that I've tried to instill in everyone that's on the show is that you're a equal partner. This is not Jenn's podcast that Rob, Laurel, and Jeff are on. This is a podcast that you own. And so when you sort of transfer that ownership to Rob and Laurel and Jeff, they have skin in the game. And so decisions are not just made unilaterally. Decisions are made by, we have a group text, and sometimes it's like a constant back and forth about issues that we're debating or things that we're talking about. It is not always this perfect little bow. Sometimes we come to the episode with things unresolved, and we allow that to bloom and develop on the show, because that's real life.
Mm-hmm.
We just don't sugarcoat it.
Yeah.
And so by allowing everybody to act and feel like they're an owner and to be empowered to be their authentic self, I think it's part of the chemistry that you hear as a listener.
Yeah. Oh, no. That's leadership 101. I was just having a conversation with somebody on Clubhouse the other day about this. It was some kind of room that was about entrepreneurship or whatever it was. And that's the secret to having employees. We're not talking about employees here, but having employees that are dedicated to a company is giving them some kind of investment in the product themselves. And so you guys doing this thing together as a unit and all being invested in it, it's only going to make for more success for the show. Absolutely. So and I wanted to talk about this for a bit. The business side of things, that people don't realize that, right? This is totally a business. It's so much fun, doing this and recording these episodes and getting to do interviews and play around. But it's a lot of work doing these things. So for you guys, how has the podcasting game been in terms of that? The not only the business side, but just the admin side, the logistics side.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think that's what Rob was alluding to earlier, is he stepped into the role of co-producer now. So it's hours, it's hours and dedication. And it's not just about getting around a microphone, recording, seeing what sticks and throwing it up there. It's really about, you got to look at the pre, peri, and post part of a podcast, how you're going to pull in your listeners and engage your listeners. And there's so many different aspects to that go so beyond the show, that the show is just one slice of the pie, but it's your social media, it's your connection and your engagement with your following. It's about reaching out to new listeners and trying to pull them in with show topics. It's about closing that feedback loop, which is why we're on Stereo now, which is a new app in the podcast game, because we wanted a way for people to be able to interact with the show as the show was live. So it's that great hybrid between doing a live radio show and a recorded podcast such as this. And so we're testing out Stereo to see if it's something that we want to stick with. And Rob and I had some good fun, and we had people that were chiming in on our last episode, but you have to think of it like a business. You have to think of it as like, what's your end goal here? And if your end goal is to monetize your podcast, then you have to be ready and be committed to treat it like a business.
Yeah.
Right.
And yeah, that's what I would say about that.
Yeah, you guys are doing phenomenal. I want to tell everybody out there, we're going to put everything in the show notes, links to all platforms, link to follow everybody, including Sanity, on social media, and the Stereo usernames as well. What is it? Sanity Jenn and Sanity Rob, right?
Sanity Pod Jenn and Sanity Pod Rob.
on that's on stereo.
On stereo.
Yeah.
I
you
tried
can-
that out. I'm still observing. I've gone into some really, really suspicious conversations on stereo. There's some crazy shit that goes on there too.
It seems like the Wild West there. I've been playing around with it, not just with Jenn, but with my friend Manny. Manny Coelho, right? He owns
Nostalgia.
he owns Lithology, and he has a Nostalgia podcast. So we'll talk a little bit. They'll do like a post show on there, and I'll get on there, and because I think I'm going to be a guest on there quite soon. So Jenn, you're just finding out about this, but I'm going to do an episode on a show called a movie called Airborne. It was like one of those movies that were on like HBO during the afternoon, and everybody's seen it. I love talking about that too. That's the other thing. I love pop culture. I love nostalgia. So I'm going to be on that too. So yeah, we've been playing around with that, and I don't know what it's going to be. I think they just put it out there, and they want the people out there to make to be the creative side of it and figure out what it is. Kind of just like TikTok. You see, how do they do that on there?
Yeah.
So I think that they're putting it out there. It's a platform, and
it looks really cool.
Use it, yeah.
It looks really cool, and I woke up briefly at like 1 a.m. I think it was last night, and then I got a notification that you were live at like 1 a.m. Was that you last night or the night before?
It was me, yeah. Manny and I were talking about. They did an episode on the Gangster's Paradise. Like they do songs. Sometimes they do a song. They'll do a movie or like commercial or like an opening theme to a TV show, and they'll rap on it. Him and his friend. Yeah. So then his co-host. So we were just kind of rapping on it too. But it's cool. I also like the fact that we can, talk about each other's podcast and cross. What's the word I'm looking for?
Cross promote, crossover.
Cross promote for each other, and that's what that's all about.
There's some cool platforms out there. Jenn and I were talking about stereo, and I was telling her about Clubhouse as well. That's the one that I've been like hooked on. And so we have a segment now, which will be after your interview segment. We have a segment every week that's a Clubhouse segment. I record. I create a Clubhouse room and record it, and it's similar to stereo, I guess, in a way, but it's not like where people send you recordings. It's all live conversations in a room. It's all drop-in audio chat. There's no text, no nothing like that. So it's pretty cool. You guys should check it out. Get on there too. It's very, very different, and it is super, super hot right now. So we'll see. Honestly, for us too, doing the segment on there, week 1 was kind of cool. Week 2. We did a whole episode about Clubhouse, but week 2 we did, after the Lisa Mateo interview, we did a segment that was supposed to be like a 20-minute segment. It turned out to be an hour-long room that I hosted, and there was like 15 people in there and some great conversations. But what was cool was, from a podcasting perspective, I had 15 more guests that I shared some of their stuff in our show notes. They shared the show out, and I'm sure they were a big part of last week's episode being such a hit for us. So yeah. Well, we got to do what we got to do as podcasters, right?
For sure.
And I think what Jenn was saying, just to piggyback what Jenn was saying before about producing, for me, it's like I'm learning stuff every day. And yes, we all have an equal say in the show, and going back to what we're talking about leadership, like what is your role in the grand scheme of things? I find that I'm more of a connector than anything else. If you want to play with the Malcolm Gladwell, tipping point word, like I feel like I have my hand in so many different places. I've been in the restaurant industry. I've been in the theater industry. I know some people, here and there, and I can always, I talk to anybody. So sometimes I found that I have more of a network than I thought I did, and using that network, and maybe as a guest or to promote the show or getting more listeners, I found that that's like a strength that I have to keep honing. Would you agree, Jenn?
I think for all of us, it's a growth. I think we all look back and say, oh, I wish I could do this better. Or I wish I would have said this. But I think the reality is that we're only going to get better over time.
Yeah.
All of us.
But consistency.
Yeah. Consistency is definitely key.
Yeah.
Yeah, I want to point out a couple of things, and then we'll wrap up. We'll hit the big three. Some of the tiny little things that I love about Sanity that I hope as a super fan you can sort of see that, yes, people notice these things. I don't know if this is like a permanent thing. I love when you started doing, probably after Rob sang on the show for the first time, whatever it was, you started doing the outro with Rob singing. Yeah. I like that. That's a very it's a poignant moment in some of the shows. I'm serious. It's a poignant moment in some of the shows because it's a cappella and it's a nice you know what it reminds me of? Honestly. And I don't want this to be morbid. You ever see when you're a pop culture guy, right? So Saturday Night Live, when Phil Hartman passed away. They always play that sketch where it wasn't really a sketch. It was Phil Hartman singing this like goodbye song. It was probably when he left Saturday Night Live.
Yeah. I remember that.
And that's the moment that it reminds me of. It's a very poignant moment, you know, in the shows. I hope you guys continue that because it's kind of cool.
Okay.
We'll do it from time to time.
We'll take that under advisement.
Yeah. We'll do it from time to time. I just do it on the fly. Sometimes Jeff calls me up and he's like, "Hey, can you sing a couple of bars?" And I'm like, "Oh man, I gotta set up a better way to record." Like there was one that I was just like, "Oh God, just don't do that again." No, but that's where the perfectionist comes in me. But sometimes things, we did that musical episode and some things, are right off the cuff and they sound great, and sometimes they don't. But that's life, right? That's life.
Yeah,
that's life.
Jeff. Love Jeff. We all know and love Jeff. The character of Jeff, though, is just incredible. Genius.
Jeff is a genius. Jeff is the real mastermind behind the show. Don't let anybody fool you. Yeah. Jeff, we're going to get Jeff to talk more. Jeff has expressed interest in potentially doing a 10 questions with Jeff episode. So stay tuned for that. But Jeff is talented beyond his own limits, beyond what he thinks. Yeah. And he is we are just so grateful to have him. He's just such a great dude. Nobody can have him. Don't poach him from us. He's ours and we love him. And
it'll cost you. It'll cost you.
Oh yes. It'll cost you.
This is a business, ladies and gentlemen. This is what we've been talking about.
Yeah. I'm not going to talk about Robin Flux because that's been played out. We're not going to go into that whole thing. But I do want to say before we go into the big three that I've been saying since the recent episode with Chef Allison Fasano, our friend. She's been on the Launchcast as well. I see little hearts and rainbows around Rob and Allison every time you guys talk to each other. I just want to put that out there.
You know what? I think she's wonderful. She's a fantastic chef. We have, and when we click. She's a good girl. We do. I haven't talked to her around. She's been so busy, but
she just won on Food Network Supermarket Stakeout.
Yeah, we talk
awesome
from time
episode.
to time. I adore her, and we've become good friends. I wish I could talk to her more, but that's how it works. Hearts, I don't know. I mean,
hearts and rainbows.
I have a soft spot for Allison Fasano.
That's all I want to know. Let me just imagine.
There
that's
it is.
all I want to know. I give you a little tip. 2 words. Celine Dion. Just play that for her. It'll be over.
Yeah,
completely.
I'll tell if you listen to this, Allison. Just I know you're busy, but just answer the text. That's all I ask.
All right, guys, time for the big three.
The big three from the Launchcast.
The big three. The big
Big
three.
three.
We are gonna throw some stuff out at you guys. I'll go one at a time with you guys. I'm gonna
Okay.
throw something out there, and you're gonna give me your top three. Quick, concise answer. All right.
Okay.
Let's go with Rob first. Rob, 3 favorite episodes of Sanity is Overrated.
I would say it would be the cereal episode for sure, because I ate all the cereal beforehand. Obviously, the anxiety episode, and I want to say the musical episode we did a couple of episodes back. Yeah, that was fun. Oh, I got sandbagged on that one though.
By the way,
Jen, don't look at me that way. She's not saying anything. It was supposed to be a joke. Yes, they double teamed me on the questions, and I lost.
Those
I
nights
did.
are
I
the
liked it a
best.
little bit.
by the way, if I ever get to be lucky enough to guest on your show, I would love to sing some Hamilton with Rob. I'd love to duet with him on your show. That would be incredible. And
We'll do
a
The Skylar sisters.
lifelong dream of mine.
Yes.
All right, Jen.
Hmm.
Oh, we're gonna get deep on this one. Give me the 3 most impactful moments in your life, and I'm talking about in a way. You know, we talk about in the show something called spark moments, right? Spark moments being a moment in your life that was so poignant that it led you down a path, good, bad, or indifferent, but that created a change in your life.
Wowza. So I would say the birth of my daughter Olivia and son Paulie changed my life. I'm gonna group them together. The death of my son James changed my life forever. And the third most impactful time of my life, I think it was standing on the stage for my senior concert when I was graduating college and looking out into the audience and just singing for them and knowing how much I just loved and adored that moment in my life, and I never wanted it to end.
Very cool. Very cool. Rob, actually, you know, I want this from both of you. 3 favorite show tunes.
Oh,
Okay. Well, Jen, you go first.
no, you go first. I need a minute to think that through.
I mean, if I hear it, the ones that I'll listen to all the way. I love Defying Gravity from Wicked. A classic would have to be Soliloquy from Carousel at Rodgers and Hammerstein, and there's a musical out there called The Bridges of Madison County, and I think it's called Just 1 Second and A Million Miles. That song is great. I mean, I think it's the best Jason Robert Brown show that he's ever written. I mean, he just hit it out of the park. Jason Robert Brown, who wrote Songs from New World and Parade, and he's kind of inside baseball musical theater, but I think everybody should listen to him for sure.
All right, Jen, you're up.
Jen's
Yeah, it would be You Will Be Found from Dear Evan Hansen.
That's a good tune.
Especially watching my daughter navigate her life right now. I think that every child needs to hear that and just understand how worthy they are, and how much their life matters, even though they may not think that themselves. I would say Seasons of Love from Rent, the original cast. And it taught me, that song really taught me how very little moments we have in this life. to make the most out of every single moment that I have with somebody that I love very much, because in a moment it could be gone. And I would just say Satisfied in Hamilton, because I just love I just love the connection that they have during that song, and that passionate sort of love and feeling satisfied and isn't this enough, and it's just something that I value very much. Now, those are more modern show tunes, but if we want to throw it way, way, way back.
Go ahead. Throw it way, way back. Give me one way, way back.
Give you one from way, way back. I mean, I gotta love a little On My Own. Andrew Lloyd Webber, Les Miserables.
Not that way, way back. Not way enough.
Okay. Children Will Listen from Ragtime. I love that song. Just all about children and how they grow up so fast. And what else do I love? I think one that Rob and I will know well is we sang in South Pacific together.
Yes,
maybe a little King and I thrown in there. Yeah.
What did we do? What we did, like There Ain't Nothing Like a Dame. You didn't wash that man right out of my hair, right? When we did that
wash
summer.
that man right out of my hair.
Oh
we
my
also
God.
did Bye Bye Birdie. Bye Bye Birdie.
Yes, we did the telephone song.
We did. And you know what we did that people still comment about?
What's that?
Suddenly Seymour.
You remember when we did that? Oh my God.
I do. It's standing
I'm telling you.
beside me.
My daughter just did
you were
that
so
last
good
year.
at the dentist.
You were so good at the dentist, Robin. You were so good. God, if I had a nickel for every time somebody's mother told me that, I knew you were going to do this because you were the dentist. Oh my God. With that accent. And it always sounded the same. So, yeah.
I love it. All right, last one, guys. And you can share this one. 3 goals for Sanity is overrated. The 3 big goals. Like, what are you trying to do with this thing?
Oh, worldwide takeover.
World domination.
Yeah. And making it a source of our lives. So it would be, you do it for fun, but of course we talk about doing it for business. So certainly finding a way for it to be a vehicle for us, and getting out there and helping people and telling people our story and connecting with our audience. Would you, Jenn, help me with this one?
Yeah. Goals for me for Sanity would be to continue to talk until people stop listening.
Mm-hmm.
Continue to just bring people the content and the conversation that they need to hear, allowing people to feel like they are not alone. Of course, monetizing and getting into all the right platforms. I'd love to be recognized on iHeartRadio's top 100 podcast list.
We need a blue check, Jenn. I think we need a blue check.
That would be great if you have an in with iHeartRadio. And allowing it to provide us the pathway to bring on great guests. We've had a bunch of wonderful guests so far, and I feel like in this year too, we have another bunch of wonderful guests lined up, and it can only go up from here. So
amazing. Guys, thank you so much for joining me. This was an incredible conversation. And first of all, thank you for jumping in to this episode. I know this was a little more last minute than I had wanted to have you guys on here, but you saved me this week because motherfuckers always cancel. I hate when people do that. I hate it so much.
It happened.
Well, we were the B plan. Thanks for letting everybody know we were the B plan.
Stop
so that's
it.
Okay.
You can tell everybody that you were I already spoke to you about being guests on this thing. You just came in a little sooner than planned. So thank you for that. Thank you for being here, guys. I had a great time. I'm going to throw you in the green room for 2 minutes just so I can do an outro, and then we'll talk. All right?
Okay.
All right. Sounds good.
Much love.
Thanks.
Damn it, that was a good one. Aren't those good people? Aren't those good people? You got to check out that podcast, guys. Everything's going to be in the show notes. Sanity is Overrated. Spotify, Apple Podcasts, iHeart, all of it. Check them out on stereo. Check them out on social media. Follow them. They have some great content as well that comes out, and they really let you be a part of the show. I don't let anybody be a part of the show except our guest. I don't want any of your feedback. No, I'm just kidding. All right, let's hop into our Clubhouse segment, and then we'll wrap it up. All right. Time for another Clubhouse segment. Here we go. We're bringing it up. I'm loving these segments. First of all, I had so much fun on this interview with Sanity's Overrated, but man, I've been getting so much good feedback on these Clubhouse segments. We're doing some really cool stuff. There we go. Doing some really cool stuff. But I'm going to invite a bunch of people here. All these new people I've connected with, and just see how this room goes. Talk about some leadership. We're going to be talking about public speaking today. I said a different topic, within the leadership realm, of course, but it's going to be public speaking. Hey, we have somebody here, Dexter Kyle. Give me one sec, Dexter, to finish. I'm going to invite everybody to speak. Here we go. All right, let's. So, guys, I just want to preface this a little bit. This is an episode of the Launchcast podcast. It's a leadership podcast, and we do a Clubhouse segment every week. So I want to preface this by saying that we do record everything in here. So if you're not cool with being recorded, you could totally jump out of the room or hop back into the audience or not speak. If you're cool with being recorded, you will be on the newest episode of the Launchcast, which goes live next Monday morning. And you guys can share, DM me, follow me, and share any links that you'd like to share in our show notes, and I will post them. I know SG that's here was one of our Clubhouse members last week, and we posted her stuff. So welcome back, SG. But let me start with Steve. Steve, tell us a little bit about yourself. Are you a public speaker?
Yeah, hi. This is actually my second time actually hopping on this platform. So this is new to me, but I am doing more public speaking lately because I released a book about 5 months ago. And so I've had lots of interview and opportunities to do that, but I want to definitely improve on my skills. But yesterday in particular, I spoke directly with Senate and House members. Actually, there were no senators on board, but House members advocating for stomach cancer because I'm a stomach cancer survivor of 13 years and had my stomach taken out 13 years ago. So I'm working this all together, and I'm new to this, and I just want to get myself out there and practice and learn from you guys. So that's why I'm here.
Amazing. Thanks, Steve, for hopping on. Yeah, that's incredible. So when we have a platform that's important to us and we need to get out on the stage and talk about these important things and tell people about our platforms, about our ideas, that's what the stage is for. And so I wanted to start this room today not only as a segment of the Launchcast that we're going to be airing, but I wanted to talk about public speaking. I myself am a public speaker. I am a three-time as of this Monday, three-time TEDx speaker. I am also a three-time TEDx organizer. I keynote all over the country, and I really enjoy public speaking, and more so than that, I really enjoy people that I get to help by just being on the stage and talking about the things that are important to me, not only my expertise, but life experience, things I've learned in life. That's what the whole point of the stage is, man. So welcome, thanks for joining, and you can hang out as a speaker up here, and any questions you have, just flash the mic and we'll take questions. All right. So I'll move on now to.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely, Steve. SG, thanks for joining again. Tell everybody a little bit about yourself. Do you do public speaking?
Hi, I am Sarah, or better known as SG, and I am a confidence and mindset coach. So I've done my fair share of speaking. I am actually looking at launching my own podcast. And yeah, I was on your podcast last week and it was great. I would say that public speaking is really tough, no matter where you're coming from, no matter what platform, for a lot of people, myself included. And it took a lot of confidence to get up in my first public speaking engagement. And ever since then, this is what makes Clubhouse great. You don't have to get up in front of an audience, even though you are getting in front of an audience, if that makes any sense at all. But yeah, great platform. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, SG. So yeah, I totally agree with what you're saying there, right? So there's a couple of things that you mentioned that really hit home to me. So one is this platform of Clubhouse. So those of you that are looking to become speakers, aspiring speakers, learning how to move your platform from whatever it is you do now onto the stage. A platform like Clubhouse is so important, right? It does a number of things for you. Number one is it sort of emulates the same idea of the stage. It puts you in front of a bunch of people that, they're not necessarily in front of you like they would be on the stage, but they're strangers, right? You don't know these people. These are people you've never spoken to or met before for the most part. And you're getting out there and you're giving little bits, little nuggets of wisdom, depending on what room you're in. And so, as a precursor to the stage or an exercise for getting on the stage and talking about your idea, and an opportunity like Clubhouse is incredible for that. Steve, you mentioned that you're an aspiring speaker. I mean, something like this, this platform, you're saying it's the second time that you're on here. I've been on for a few weeks now, not too long. And I have found that just being somebody that is coming on here and being of service to others, somebody that can come here and offer some advice to people without any agenda, not trying to sell anything, just starting conversations and listening to people and making connections. It's really been incredible, and it leads to other stuff. Honestly, like I've I mentioned all the stuff that I do on the stage, but I also own a management consulting firm, and I do leadership coaching and public speaking coaching. And so this has led to people contacting me and asking me if they could potentially work with me. And I've wound up booking a couple of clients from Clubhouse. So it's such a cool platform for just meeting people. And if you're here for the right reason, then, good things happen, right?
Yeah, exactly. Well, many people have told me that I should do a TEDx. And that to me is like the holy grail for what I'm looking to do, and what you've done it 3 times, you said. So that is just fascinating. I need to, and so I'm just sitting here to figure out how I can refine my story and get it out there. And here, I literally used to have panic attacks 20 years ago when I would have to speak in front of people. And for whatever reason, in the last 10 years after my terrible situation that I had, now my anxiety has dropped significantly. And not that I'm not nervous, but it's just good to understand that everyone goes through something similar like that before speaking. But
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I'd be happy to give you any kind of feedback that you're looking for. Just check out my profile, follow me, and then maybe DM me on Instagram. It's at Launchpad CEO on all platforms. And any kind of feedback that you're looking for, hopefully I could help you out. All right, buddy?
I just followed you, so thank you.
Thank you, buddy. Yeah, let's move on to Dwayne. Dwayne, what's up, buddy? Tell us what you do, why you're here, what kind of advice you're looking for here.
Hey man, I'm doing pretty good over here in Boise, Idaho. I wouldn't say that I'm a public speaker per se. I've hosted a couple of different podcasts. The art of flow conversations have been something that's really intrigued me, and like the spontaneous speaking, I really enjoy being able to engage in conversations with people that have a different perspective than the one I have currently. And, I'm not sure I'm looking for any advice per se, but I hear a lot of things that turns out like to be big, life-changing statements that, like, one of my first coaches, she said, you should start a blog. And turns out like I've been working on a blog that was the result of a conversation that she had with me, with not even really thinking anything of it, that has been like a huge therapeutic outlet. I'm an advocate for recovery of alcoholism and addiction. And I have spoken in front of audiences before, and yeah, I don't know. I want to be able to add as much value to every person that I've come into contact with, and just to be able to do that without any expectation of anything in return. So
yeah,
I'm not always the best at that, but that's the goal.
I appreciate that, man. Coming here and coming to this platform as a person of service is incredible, and we appreciate that. So hopefully we could add some value here with these conversations, and stick around and add anything you'd like to. Greg Reed just popped back in, guys. Good opportunity here. This is Dr. Greg S. Reed right here, the man, the myth, the legend. He's the author of 3 Feet from Gold and about 1.5 million other books, and he's my friend, and he's a public speaker. And Greg, welcome, buddy. Thanks for being here.
Absolutely. So it's interesting getting the speakers together. One of the topics we were going over earlier about getting stages and how you land them, and why we keep seeing the same people every single time we pop up on these podcasts, or you see them on the internet, or you see them on YouTube. And I realized it came down to a simple little 4-step process. And I decided to pop on here for 5 minutes and share it with you. If you're good with it, George, I'll share with what I learned that opened up the doors for me to speak on the stages from the Pentagon to United Nations.
Yeah, please, buddy. Share away.
All right. So this is something they don't teach, and I wish they did. And it cost me $130,000 to learn this, because I got frustrated. I kept seeing the same people. Every time you see these flyers, you see the same faces. And it came down to the most successful people follow this 4 steps. Those who follow it succeed in public speaking. Those who don't fail. I know it's a big statement, but you'll understand when I'm done. Step 1 is they come up with something called a name and a hook. And it's like a fish's mouth that pulls you in and grabs your attention. And so many people just want to talk rather than grab attention. So when I did my first book, it was called The Millionaire Mentor. So let's say I went to a networking event and people said, "Hey, my name's Bob. I'm a doctor. Who are you?" I said, "I'm Greg. They call me the Millionaire Mentor." What? Right? It pulls them in. They'll ask a question. Step 2 is your elevator speech. But what people really want to know, who you are, what's your message, why are you an expert, and why should I give a shit? This is so important. Who you are, what's your message, why are you an expert, why should I care? And I would say, hey, I'm like the new Zig Ziglar. I teach people to get what you want. You help others get what they want. I became successful doing it. Now I teach others. They can do it too. Who am I? Greg the Millionaire Mentor. What's my message? To get what you want, help others. Why should you listen? Because I've been successful doing it. Why should you care? Because I'm going to teach you the same thing. Step 3 is your essay version. And that's where you show your expertise in action. And I would say, look, let's get this out of the way. I don't work just with millionaires. I mentor inner city gang kids in San Diego. Happened to drive up in a brand new Ferrari. The kids would say, "Here comes my millionaire mentor." Became a badge of honor where the president of the United States wrote a letter of commendation and changed my life and my community. And then step 4 leads to your product, good, or service, which leads me to my book, The Millionaire Mentor, where I'll teach you to do the same in life and business. Look at that. Look how all that lines up. Imagine calling the local TV show and saying, "Hey, put me on your morning news. Who are you?" "I want to help people." That's awesome, but there's no real thing there. But imagine calling up and say, "Hey, put me on your next program. Who are you?" "I'm the Millionaire Mentor." "Well, I want to be a millionaire." "Well, I'm like Zig Ziglar, to get what you want. You help others teach what they want," right? I became successful doing it. Now I teach others. I'll teach your audience. They could do it too. Well, I'm sure they all want to be millionaires. Let's get this out of the way. I just don't work with millionaires. I mentor inner city kids here in San Diego, happen to be successful, blah, 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 which leads me to step 4, my book, The Millionaire Mentor. In just 5 minutes, I'll teach your audience, viewers, exactly how they can do it in life and business. Now I'm an expert. And if you go back and look at everyone that's ever been successful in this industry, that's exactly what they did, but just no one shares it. Les Brown, you got to be hungry. Zig Ziglar, see you at the top. Think about this. Robert Kiyosaki, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. Napoleon Hill, Think and Grow Rich. When it all came down to, people followed it. Right now, Grant Cardone and 10X, everyone's following this simple little process. So it's important for us to find what our little 4-step is, and then we can dominate the marketplace as well.
Amazing. I appreciate that nugget, brother. That's incredible. Guys, this is what this platform is all about. This is what this platform is all about. Greg, I just want to ask you one follow-up question and ask you to share where people can reach you and what kind of programs you're offering right now, because I know we won't have you for long. But I want to ask you one follow-up question. When you're on that stage, right? When you're on that stage, and these were great tips for getting on that stage, what is your biggest tip for engaging that audience?
It's interesting. So when I go out, Les Brown taught me this, by the way. Basically, the first 90 seconds, we're the most scared, right? We got the butterflies, we're nervous. So if I went out on stage and I sung happy birthday to, I wouldn't even think about it. It'd be like on autopilot. So I came up with a happy birthday song that I say 100% of the time when I walk on stage, and I engage in the audience within 4 minutes, and it works like this. And then I do got to bounce. Basically, I walk out. They go, "Come to the stage is Greg Reed." I never ask the audience how they're doing. I never engage. I just start talking. As I'm walking onto the stage, you're going to hear me say this. I had a great mentor. His name's Charlie Tremendous Jones. And he said that we are the same today as we'll be in 5 years, except for two things: the people we meet and the books we read. In high school, if you hung around smokers, you're a smoker. If you hung around jocks, you're the jock. Same thing applies today. If you hang around people that are positive and solution searching, that becomes the conversation that plays in your head. On the same note, if you hang around people that complain, gripe, and mun, unfortunately, that's the conversation that plays within your brain. Through the time we're going to have together, I'm going to share amazing people I've met along my success journey, and also some books, some products you should have in your own success library. This is the first one I ever did. It's called the Millionaire Mentor. And then I'd say, who would like a free copy? And 3 hands go up. I give them a book. And then I'd say, here's my other bestseller. And I wave it up, and 20 hands go up, and I give it out. By the time I raise the 3rd book, everyone in the audience hands goes up. And within minutes, I already have an engaged audience. They're raising their hand saying that they want what I have. And I never one time had a picture.
Amazing. Greg, appreciate it, buddy. I'm going to share all your stuff. This is going for a new segment that we're doing on the Launchcast. So it'll be a short little segment added to the next episode. I'll share all the links. Just tell people where they can reach you, man.
Just follow me here. And most importantly, I look forward to seeing you, George. I cannot wait till we do a TEDx together. And Steve's on here, a good buddy of mine, too. Love this cat. Enjoy. I'll see you guys later. Bye.
Later,
Thanks,
bud.
Greg.
And there he goes again. There he goes. Yeah, so anybody else, Stormy and Susan, just raise your hands if you want to join us up here. It's great to be an audience member, but I love when people engage on this platform, ask questions. Greg mentioned, so Greg's an interesting cat, right? Greg is a person that embodies what this platform, how you should operate on this platform, right? So Clubhouse is a platform where if you come on here and you can be of service, and just give advice like that out, people will follow, right? I mean, it is such an incredible, Susan's asking to be a speaker. Awesome. People will follow, people will appreciate what you're doing, and they know that you're a person of service. That's how I met Greg Reed, who, guys, again, if you don't know him, best-selling author, like top speaker, one of the top speakers in the country. I mentioned before that I'm a 3-time TEDx speaker, but I'm also an executive producer of a TEDx event that we have done 2 so far. I'm a 2-time TEDx organizer for my event. I'm a co-producer for another event. And so Greg is actually going to be speaking next October 9th at our next TEDx event, which is so exciting. People like Greg that come in here, this dude can charge a lot of money for advice. Same with my company and what I do. I charge a lot of money for what I do. But you're coming in here and you're getting feedback from people like that. And I wish we had a little bit more of a full room tonight. I think it's just the middle of a day. We're going to cut it off soon. But yeah, that's what this thing is about. So any other questions, guys? We can talk public speaking now. Any type of feedback, advice you're looking for, I'm here to answer any questions. And I think this will be a really helpful segment for the Launchcast podcast. So go ahead if you have any questions.
Hey, George and Steve and Stormy. This is Sue TK. No real question right now. I'm on here because I am interested in podcasts and I'm interested in the whole makeup of podcasts. So this came up on my phone. I had some time. I thought I am going to drop in and see who's talking, what they have to offer. And I'm now following you, George, and I'm excited to learn more about this. My business is called Your Fascination Factor. I love doing public speaking. Right now, I'm only doing it virtually. So that's me. Thank you for asking.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for joining. So I'll give you as much as I can here. So podcasting for me, right? So let me give you a little background on me first. So I own a management consulting firm, and that company has sort of become the umbrella and basis for everything else that I do. Management consulting, I basically fix broken businesses, right? Through that, I was able to start a marketing agency. I was able to start a coaching division of my consultancy where we do leadership coaching, public speaking coaching. We actually do podcasting coaching. We have a podcasting class. But when I started the leadership division, I was really, really deep into my public speaking already, being paid to speak at events. I had already done, I think, a couple of TEDx's at that point and produced one show at that point. But there was a point when I launched the leadership coaching part of the company where I wanted to bring an element of it where we can talk about leadership, right? And so I came up with the notion that if I build a podcast as a platform to be able to disseminate some of the leadership concepts that I do, I didn't build it as a platform to go and say like, hey, this is going to be a thing that's going to get me on the radio and I'll make a ton of money or whatever. It was never about that. It was just an extension of my leadership coaching division. But I put a lot of thought into it. I it was 6 months before I pulled the trigger on it after doing a tremendous amount of work putting the show together from an equipment technical aspect, from a logistics aspect for interviews, from a physical aspect, building a studio in my office, and then of course from a content aspect, building a podcast that I would be proud of, that is worthy of the type of work that I do and put out. And once it all came together and we launched, it was very quick that we discovered that this thing had some legs and that people were really enjoying what was coming out of it. And so very soon after launching it, it actually separated off from just being an extension of the leadership coaching stuff to its own entity, a leadership podcast. The Launchcast is a podcast where we do long form interviews and we talk about leadership and unconventional journeys to leadership. We interview leaders out there. Greg Reed, that was in this room, best-selling author, producer of the Wishman movie on Netflix, connector extraordinaire. He was a guest on my podcast, one of our favorite episodes, right? And people like that have come and they've told us their unconventional journeys to getting to the leadership position that they're in now, and people dig it. People became fans of the show, and the business of the show became its own business in and of itself, right? We have sponsors for every episode. It's a whole thing. So if you wanted to pick my brain on podcasting, Sue, I'm always willing to talk. Just, follow me on Instagram. I think you said you did, and DM me and we can chat. We can set up a Zoom, but this is it's an enjoyable business. We're live on here now on the podcast, as I mentioned in the notes here to the Clubhouse room, and I'm going to reiterate, as I said a couple of times during the episode, we are recording now, and this is going to be part of episode 207, our next episode that goes live on Monday. So everybody jumping into this room is obviously giving me permission to air this, and if you have stuff to share, please just hop on, DM me and send me any links that you want to share if you have spoken in this room. And so anybody else that does want to speak besides Sue, just raise your hand and I'll bring you up here before we wrap up. But yeah, Sue, that's sort of the deal. And this episode in particular, I'll tag you on your stuff if you want to send me your links and DM me. But this episode in particular is really cool because this segment is actually following an interview we did with another podcast. We interviewed two of the hosts of a podcast called Sanity is Overrated, two of my friends that host that. And we actually talked about the importance of podcasting, the business of podcasting, how their podcast was built and whatever. So great episode for you to listen to when it goes live on Monday if you're interested. So again, I'm here as a resource, Sue. Reach out if you need, okay?
Thank you, George. I will. I really appreciate being invited into the room and invited to just say who I am and how I'm looking at this. As a newbie, this is exciting for me, and I'm learning. I'm getting my wings in this new venue. So thank you.
Absolutely. Thanks, Sue. I'm going to wind up closing out this room because no more questions. Nobody else is raising their hands. We had a nice 26-minute segment here that we're going to add to the new episode of the Launchcast. So, guys, again, reach out to me, DM me if you have spoken, and send me your links that I can share for you in the show notes. And this will go live Monday at 6 a.m. on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Pandora, all the platforms. So thanks for joining me, guys. I'm going to close out the room now and follow me, and we'll connect again. All right. Get that. Another Clubhouse segment. I'm having a lot of fun with these. These are really cool. And next week I'm actually going to try a room within one of the groups that I belong to. There's some groups within Clubhouse that you can start Clubhouse chats within those groups to include only those people. And so I'm going to try one of those next week. We're changing it up. We're trying different things. So thanks for listening to the Clubhouse segment, and let's close out the show. All right, guys, another great episode of the Launchcast. At least I think it was great. I hope you thought it was great. Join us every single Monday, 6 a.m., Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Pandora, iHeart, TuneIn. You know the deal. See you next week, guys.
Into the black hole.
Thanks for listening to the Launchcast today. Please make sure to subscribe to this feed wherever podcasts are available. Follow me, George Andriopoulos, at Launchpad CEO on Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram. And make sure to visit our website, guys, thelaunchcast.com. Looking forward to the next episode. See you soon, guys.